Welcome, Bob. I'm with Bob Cousins. Bob Cousins has worked with startups in both energy and computing for more than 35 years. He has served as CTO and/or engineering VP of multiple technology companies from New York to California. He's an inventor and technologist, and he holds over 20 patents in diverse areas, including file system design, data storage, security, and high frequency radar, also imaging and medical instrumentation, and virtual credit cards. He's also written two novels, Pipov and Miller's Trials. Welcome, Bob. You have an amazing and incredibly diverse background.
Well,
Can you
thank you
tell
very
me
much.
can you tell me a little bit about how you got here and how you got inspired to do all of these different things that you do?
Well, I got here one day at a time. The the fun part of the world is that we're in a world in which exciting things are happening all the time and waves of new technologies are coming through. I got caught up in the early computer wave that started in the 1970s, and it made it possible for me to be in on the ground floor of the creation of first the personal computer world and then the internet world and all of the associated technologies that tied in with that, including electronics and computer software and networking and things like that. It was that I was at the right place at the right time, but if you actually look at the history books, there's a constant round of waves of new technologies that have come down time and time again. I was just in the right place for this particular one.
So, when you were a kid, did you say, "Hey, I want to grow up and become an inventor"?
I said that I wanted to learn how things worked. I was raised by a family that didn't have technical people in it. I came from a family of entrepreneurs, lawyers, and ranchers in Texas. I was the odd person out because I kept buying books on electronics and physics and chemistry and mathematics because they were interesting to me. My family thought there was something quite strange about it. Um, then, of course, I go to school to become an electrical engineer and find out that the school is in the school and I don't get along very well, and I end up cutting my own path, leaving college early. The world is a different place when you actually are interested in finding out how things work and finding out how to solve problems with the information and technologies that you've learned about. And when in these exciting times, it was very, very much fun to be able to say, oh, that's an interesting problem, and I think I could solve that. I think I could make something a little better.
Speaking of making things better, you're an inventor of so many different things. It's not just one narrow area. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the things that you've invented?
Well, perhaps the most well known thing that I invented, of course, my name is not associated with any of these technologies because they're very basic technologies, and it would be like talking about someone who helped to build skyscrapers because they invented a component that's used inside of the skyscrapers. They'd never been blamed for the skyscraper, but what they did was important. The most well used thing is the virtual credit card. Essentially, all modern credit cards today use a technology that Dr. Lou Abel and I developed back around the year 2000, a little earlier, which made it possible for people to manipulate their finances and credit more flexibly. And it has been adopted by essentially all the major credit card companies in the world. We sold the patents on that to what is ultimately MasterCard.
That's amazing. So every time I use my credit card, you had a piece in that technology.
Yes,
Uh,
but I don't get paid for it. I
okay.
already got paid.
All right. That's amazing. So you don't just invent, you also write. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, the biggest problem that engineers have and inventors have is getting their ideas across. The most powerful tool that I got in school was the ability to express myself on paper so that I could make an argument for or explain why a particular design needed to be made in a particular way. That turned into, over the years, the ability and the need for me to write many, many papers, white papers, memos, or other things that you would not normally assume were technical, but were of technical nature, that had to explain ideas that were complicated to people who weren't necessarily technical. Eventually, that turned into an interest on my part to write fiction, but it also came about as I would have an idea for an invention, and if I wanted to make the invention, I had to be able to write down and explain what it was. It also was important to get a patent. You have to be able to explain what something is in a patent well enough for someone else to be able to make it. Otherwise, you haven't described it well enough to meet the law. So it's very important for a young technical person or inventor to become good at explaining ideas on paper or on a computer. It's very, very important because the people that cannot explain their ideas can't get other people to help them with their ideas. And the people that can explain their ideas can get people to help them and can convince people to assist and can ultimately grow things to be very large. There's different types of creativity. Engineering and the technical skills, the technical fields associated with it, engender a particular type of creativity that's completely different than the creativity that is taught in the theater arts or in the musical world. It's a completely different type of creativity, and as a result, it can be difficult for someone from one side to recognize the skill in the other side. It's in some ways it's oil and water, but the creativity is still there. Matter of fact, all great invention is essentially a creative act. There's very little in this world that's actually evolutionary. It tends to be revolutionary.
I also have a question for you because you were a kid growing up in a family that didn't have others who were interested in the same things that you were. Do you have any recommendations for kids who might have an interest in inventing or in any kind of science or engineering or math or any kind of technology if they don't have other family members who are so inclined in that area?
I have two. The first is that if you don't get your hands dirty playing with whatever it is you're interested in, it's just not the same. You'll learn more quickly. You'll enjoy yourself. It's a wonderful thing to get your hands dirty in whatever you're interested in, whether it's mathematics or whether it's chemistry or whether it's computers or robotics or whatever it might be. The second thing is seek out a mentor. Find out someone else who is interested in it. I was fortunate enough to find some mentors who would help me and also some friends who were also interested in computers when I was in high school. And as a result, it was possible for us to learn, and we would exchange books and talk about things over lunch, and we would talk to our mentors, and we would get a tour of a big computer system. We ultimately developed a computer dating service in high school, which was a story for another day. But the truth of the matter is, if you have other people to talk to, you can learn a lot more and you can exchange ideas. And not all learning is easy. They'll help you over the tough parts, and you'll help them over the tough parts. Together, you can conquer things you can't conquer alone. And at the same time, you picked up a friend, picked up a mentor, and it helps you through life. It makes you happier, and it makes your life easier. It's a
That,
wonderful way.
that's really good advice. And I have to say that we're so incredibly fortunate to have you on the board of the Mentor Project, but also you're a mentor with the Mentor Project. People are able to reach out to you and ask questions, and you've been available to kids in the maker groups, and you're available in classrooms virtually. So we are so privileged to have you and with the Mentor Project. And now anyone else out there who wants to access you via Ask a Mentor has access to you too. So I want to thank you, Bob, for being on today and for sharing all of your wisdom with us.
Thank you very much. I look forward to speaking with you in the future, and all of the questions that are going to come in my direction.